I've been working on this scene for a while, and I was thinking of adding some visual effects, but I wasn't entirely sure what to do about it. I wanted to try different things, but that get really expensive really quick if you don't know exactly what you're aiming for. So instead of just going at it with no plan at all and just burn time in the process, I remember that Clip Studio Paint has this function called Colorize that automatically colors any layer that you use as a reference, giving us a final layer with painted gradients. And I thought that would be useful to try things out, so let me show you what I did. The first thing I decided to draw was a rough outline of the animation, trying to figure out the general movement of the effect I was going for. The general idea of the effect was to come out from the moon staff and then follow the inertia of her swing and sway with the wind, so it acts like a fluid. And after I was done and saw how it looked in motion, I decided I wanted to create another reference for all the parts of the effect that are behind it, or all the areas of the effect that are coming from the inner part of the staff. This is to give it more weight and more of a three-dimensional look. So what I did is to copy this entire animation folder and started to delete the areas I wasn't going to use to modify the shapes that I wanted. And doing it this way will ensure that both folders will overlap, at least in the areas that match perfectly. So it is the same process. You go frame by frame, modifying every drawing and checking with the onion skins. And after I was done with these two layers visible, I pressed play to see if it made any sense at all. Fortunately it's working, so I was able to move forward and clean the animation. So I created another animation folder and started to trace the references and changing some of the shapes to make them look more interesting, but still following the flow of the references. A detail is that I decided to split this line work into two folders, one containing the front part of the effect and the other one containing the small parts of the effect that are behind. And that way I can control the color of each part of the line work individually. So after a lot of cleaning, this is what I had in the end. And at that point, I was sure that the animation kinda worked. So I decided to add some shapes and shadows flowing with it to enhance the sense of movement. But instead of doing it in a completely new folder, I decided to copy the main animation and start drawing from there. This will make more sense later, but the idea is that the function we want to use needs a layer with solid lines to do its job. So if I can include all of that information there, it will make things a lot easier. And from here, I kept drawing frame by frame, and after finishing, this is how it looked like. Now with everything ready, we can move on and set things up to use the colorize function. The workflow will look a little bit complicated because we are dealing with animation and there's a lot of layers, but I'll try to make it as straightforward as I can. First, to the left, I have a bunch of colors that I thought would look good for this effect. Then I proceeded to click on the animation layer that I wanted to colorize and set it up as a reference layer. This will work as an indication to the software to only paint on this area and following the general shape of the line work. Now, the second thing you need to do is to create a hint layer, and the software will read the color of this layer to paint the final layer we're looking for. But instead of just painting a few traces here and there, I decided to fill the entire area of the effect with a base color. And the reason I did this is because the image that you get out of this process will be created in a new layer with a white background. So the idea is to use this folder full of hint layer to clip a new folder full of the color layers to contain all of these colors in their proper areas, excluding the white background. So after painting with this base color, I proceeded to paint an idea of what I wanted. Shadows in the areas where it makes sense, and then the other random colors in between. The next step is to go to edit, colorize, use hint image and colorize. Remember to do this as you are selecting your hint color layer. You will get a pop-up saying that the image will be uploaded to a server, processed, and then removed with no user identifiers. click OK, and we wait until our layer is processed. And what we get is this new layer in multiply blending mode. So if we change that blending mode back to normal, you can see that it has a white background. And this is why I created all the hint layers the way I did. Now we can take this layer, put it in an animation folder, and clip it against our hint layers to hide all the areas we don't want. And now, to make all of this look good, the idea that I had was to turn down the opacity to 70%, then hide the reference layer with all the line work, and just leave the folder we drew with the borders alone, and clip the outline color on top of it. And this is the look I was looking for. Now it's just a matter of repeating this process with every frame. It takes a while, but it is pretty straightforward. Once I was done, I set up the opacity on the layers, like I did before. And this is how it looks in motion. Painting this by hand would have taken a little bit more time, and even if I'm still not sure what to do with this scene, I'm glad I'm able to visualize this before taking another step. A lot of people use this function to paint a single drawing. They usually use that and start painting from there. Similarly, I think it could be really useful for animation. Anyway, I hope some of this stuff was useful, and you guys can check some of my work in my social media down below. Have a good one. Goodbye.